They mailed one.
Careful of the cord.
Thank you, everyone, for coming out. We appreciate your participation. Video of this meeting is streamed on YouTube and will also be available on Facebook and the Village's website. I'd ask the clerk to call the meeting to order and to call the roll.
Trustee Augustine.
Here.
Trustee Gale.
Here.
Trustee McGee. Trustee O'Brien. Trustee Peterson.
Here.
Trustee Thompson.
Here.
President Kugler.
Here. And Trustee O'Brien has a work conflict, and Trustee McGee is coming later. She is tied up in an appointment, so we expect her. At this time, I'd ask Clerk Saladino to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Did you say you gave me updated president report? Yeah. Okay. Jumping in right away, as many of you might know, last night the LaGrange Fire and Police Departments responded to a fire in the 100 block of North LaGrange Road, the LaGrange Towers. Firefighters and police officers were joined by agencies from throughout the region and worked as a team to assist an estimated 60-plus residents of the building. Thankfully, residents were brought to safety and the fire was safely contained with only 2 minor injuries reported. On behalf of the Village of LaGrange, I'd like to extend our heartfelt appreciation to Chief Rita of the LaGrange Fire Department, all of our firefighters and police officers, and all the other responding agencies that contributed to such a successful response. And Chief, was it 16 or how many agencies did we have?
There as well to assist with some of the residents that were displaced.
Thank you, and thanks again to our police department for their assistance as well. But obviously, it was a big occurrence, and it really shows how not only our surrounding first responders are willing to contribute, but they came from far and wide to help out. I believe it was on the 7th floor. There was a lot of smoke, and they had to evacuate above and then stage below, and they did obviously a fine job, and the residents were all safely removed, and then with the Red Cross, anybody who wasn't able to find secure housing has been able to, correct? Thank you, Chief. And thank you for that. Moving on to happier news. It's Hometown Holidays and the Holiday Walk. LaGrange is decking the halls and gearing up to light up the season with festive activities for the entire family during Hometown Holidays in LaGrange. The holiday shopping season kicks off with Small Business Saturday, which is November 30th, where shoppers can grab special flash sale deals. In December, please mark your calendar for the tree lighting. The tree is already up. It's very big, looks great. And Santa's arrival to kick off the holiday walk on Saturday, December 7th. So we'll have Christmas and holiday quarreling and different events, and always Santa and Mrs. Claus will be up here for pictures and to greet the children and make sure they're all on the good list. All are invited to join this annual celebration of the season, and we look forward to seeing you there. Some of you are here for this, 47th and East Avenue, the four-way stop, the 3 communities that meet at 47th and East, and IDOT for years has been saying that they wanted to signalize that intersection. And I know from social media, a lot of people believed it was never going to happen. Well, it's happening. And as you can imagine, some things don't run smoothly. As many of you know, work on the intersection of 47th and East Avenue began last week. The $18 million project is being undertaken by the Illinois Department of Transportation and will result in the reconstruction of the existing 4-way stop intersection to a signalized intersection with dedicated turn lanes, improved lighting, resurfacing, drainage, and other improvements. The project is anticipated to be completed in the fall of 2026. The village is aware of the impacts the projects had on residents in the area and is advocating on your behalf for improvements to the management of traffic in that area. The village has also taken its own steps of erecting signs indicating that streets are closed except for local traffic. This has also included enhanced enforcement by the police, and we thank you, Chief Griffin, and your staff on that. Village representatives continue to communicate with IDOT to address the community's concerns. IDOT has indicated that they are aware of the condition and are actively collaborating with contractors performing the work to resolve traffic-related issues. Current and ongoing steps to mitigate traffic impacts include changeable message signs that they'll be added to westbound 47th Street to Plainfield Road prior to East Avenue, 55th Street and East Avenue in westbound, eastbound, and northbound directions. Additional detour signage will be installed. That's purpose to guide industrial traffic from the Surgo Drive and Dancher Road. On Plainfield Road before LaGrange Road, and supplementary signage will be placed with road closed to through traffic signs on Type 3 barricades on East Avenue. A Type 3 barricade with a local traffic only sign at 10th Avenue off 47th will also be placed. The village is hopeful that these steps will serve to alleviate some of the traffic conditions experienced in the past few days. Staff will continue to be in touch with IDOT representatives and will continue to work on behalf of the residents to ensure the impacts of the project are minimized. I can tell you that I've been in touch with Senator Mike Porfirio, who lives in the area. His family is in the area, his young children. He's very concerned. He's been advocating on our behalf with IDOT also, and we appreciate his personal attention to this situation. And again, 2026 is scheduled as a long time. We know that. There's going to be problems, and we're going to get through it. But we appreciate your concerns, and we realize that you need to make them clear. So at this time, I'd like to move to allow public comments on both items that are not on tonight's agenda. So we're talking about 47th and East as well as R6, or are we, what's the two? Okay, so what we're saying now is normally we would wait till the end of the meeting to have comments regarding matters not on tonight's agenda, but because people expressed that they were going to come to the meeting, and it may be a long meeting, we wanted you to have the opportunity to first come to the podium and discuss your concerns. So who's ever first? No, this is just about 47th and East. And feel free to stand behind so we know that somebody's next. And
yeah, my name is John Pluto. I live on East Avenue. I've felt the rage of East Avenue for 45 years. Now the state has come in, and be careful what you wish for, because last Tuesday it was a mess. We had gravel trucks lined up in front of my house, semis from FedEx and everybody else going down that street for a caravan for hours, and it's still going on today. Not quite as bad. The trucks are kind of surmised, but we have a lot of people cutting through. What needs to happen is they need to close off northbound East Avenue right at Plainfield Road, right at the water reservoir. It needs to be detoured down Plainfield Road. There's no reason for traffic to come to those two streets, 49th and 50th. It just inundates the whole traffic grid there. We have a school that has 250 children that go to it, not including the kids that wait for buses for Gurry and for LT. It's a very dangerous situation, and the unfortunate part of this is nothing will get fixed until there's an injury or a death, and we don't want that. And it's common sense. They can stop the problem by putting road closed at Plainfield Road, direct all the traffic that way, and it's not going to encumber any of their traffic pattern.
Thank you. I agree that, and hopefully we'll start with this better signage there, and maybe even convince them to close that road or just keep it, again, open obviously for local traffic, but that's sometimes ignored. Thank you, Mr. Pluto. Please.
Good evening. My name is Mark Buchanan, and I live on 8 West Burlington, near LaGrange Road and Burlington Avenue. I'm here to discuss the residential parking situation in the open lots. Several occasions where I have tried to find parking overnight in the overnight permit slots. I've noticed that they've all been full. However, these slots are limited, so there should be open slots for me to park at the end of the night. And so as a result, I have to park in neighboring areas. And then when I wake up, I have tickets on my car for not being able to park in my area. And I
So
noticed,
can I just ask you again to say, where do you live?
yeah, it's 8 West Burlington. Yeah, so it's the lot on Ashland and Burlington over there by the Metra. And so the lot is typically full in the residential parking area, so I park in neighboring areas, but then I wake up to tickets on my car for not parking in the right area. And I noticed that the signs, they say you can park from 2 to 6 a.m. However, I don't think it's reasonable for me to get up at 2 a.m. to repark my car there. And so I wanted to propose that you would shift the time on those signs from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., whereas it would also be with the CBD parking. The city business parking is from it's from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. So then if the residential was from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., it kind of would make a little more sense for people who pay to park there.
Okay, and so if, just so I can understand what you're saying, I think you're saying that normally when you get home in the evening, the spots are taken by people that are going to the restaurants, stores, wherever, and then they leave at some time,
Right.
but you're already home and you don't want to come out and move the car.
Yeah, exactly. And then, I go out for runs early in the morning, and I notice not all the cars have permits on them. There are people that are parking there that shouldn't be parking there.
Okay, well, we are and I'll say it to the public, we are definitely stepping up our enforcement. We have license plate readers now with the parking enforcement, and so people have been saying, well, we're getting more tickets because now it's being enforced. I've done this for years. So hopefully that problem will be solved, and then we can look at what better ways to make sure that there is resident parking there.
Yeah.
So thank you for coming out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, maybe the 47th and East Avenue, the residents are seeing that we're trying, and we'll continue to try to make that improvements. Next, we have Manager Knight's report.
We do, and good evening, everyone. First off, just wanted to have a notification out there. Village offices will be closed on Thursday, November 28th and Friday, November 29th for the Thanksgiving holiday. The offices will reopen on December 2nd, and we wish everybody an enjoyable and memorable Thanksgiving holiday. Item A under tonight's manager's report is a comprehensive update to Title VII of the Village Code. This is part of the village's ongoing effort to comprehensively update the Village Code. Tonight, proposed updates to Title VII have been prepared for the Village Board's consideration. This is the last title scheduled for review prior to presentation for formal adoption of the code by the Village Board. The updates have been reviewed by the Village's consultant, staff, and the Village attorneys, and several attachments are included in the materials. First is a table listing more substantive changes and an accompanying explanation. Overall, the updates to Title VII include improved regulations to abandoned and unlawful vehicles, alarm technology and registration, noise and unsanitary conditions, anti-cruelty and other provisions related to animals, adopting state firework regulations, ambulance services, and more. There is also a clean copy of the text and strike-through version of the proposed Title VII included as well. Staff is able and ready to respond to Village Board questions, and proposed changes will be included in the updated final draft that will be presented to the board likely early next year. President Kukler, that concludes my report, and we're happy to take any feedback the board has.
Thank you, Village Manager Knight. So I'll open it up to trustees to see if there's any feedback on Title VII. Trustee Icy.
Thank you, President Kukler. I just have a few questions, really, and I'm glad to see this whole section updated. There's some important nuances that were changed that are important. The term, and I'm on page 9 of the marked up copy, the strike-through version, section 75, animals running at large. You know, in a previous meeting, we were talking about language that's kind of easy to understand. I mean, I know what that means and I've read it, but that seems to be the common way to describe animals, how they're housed and leashed. So there's no better way of saying that. It's just gonna stick. Animals at large. Is that the best way to?
Oh, I apologize. My laptop is blocking that. That's what is throughout really every municipal code that you'll find. And the common terminology that, trying to provide a different description or term would just, I think, add to the confusion. So in that case, we stuck to the term that's, commonplace and used throughout most villages in their codes to be consistent with that.
Right, yeah, I did a little searching and it does seem pretty commonplace. It just didn't strike me as like, I didn't understand it right away when I read it, and then when I read it, obviously I know. But if you're in the neighborhood and you have an issue with a neighbor's dog or your own, and you go to read it, it just didn't jump out initially as something I understood until I researched it. Okay, but I like the idea of. It appears as if we're trying to create a better way to enforce issues with off-leash dogs or biting, and set limits. And I'm just wondering, as this is updated, I know some neighbors and some friends who've had issues with neighborhood dogs, both barking or seeming dangerous. Has this helped? And maybe this is a question for the chief or possibly Charity. Has this helped us? Will this help us with enforcement, or is it just really updating the language?
Anybody that meets any of those criteria for the dangerous animal.
Good, because I noticed there's, if there's a dog and it's so nuanced, but if there's a dangerous dog and it bites someone once, they get up to 3 opportunities for that dog to be violent before anything happens, and at that point, something happens. So I think that's the way it was, and I was just trying to find out if we've made it more difficult for someone to keep a dangerous dog. If a dog gets out, it happens quite a bit. I mean, you would know, but is there anything we can do to the language to have it be more easily enforced, or is this good enough for you? I don't think we really changed it, and I was just trying to see if we made it easier. We've updated the language, which is great, but I just couldn't tell if we've made it easier for you guys to do your jobs, and that includes the dogs that are barking and the neighbors. The owners don't go out to stop that.
Right. So we haven't had issues in terms of the ordinance being any hindrance to us in enforcing any of the animal, the violations surrounding animals in the community, and I think this will continue to work for us moving forward.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Trustee Augustine. Thank you, Chief Griffin, for that clarification. And again, we are moving to adjudication. So we will be able to bring these nuisance type issues before the adjudicator, and that should help with enforcement also. Any other comments? Okay. Do we need anything, any more direction? No? Thank you for your input. This, again, was our 7th title, or 7th chapter, or 7th section of the code. There are about 150 pages in each chunk. And really a lot of work done by our legal department, our legal team, our community development team, our village manager, and I appreciate, and I know the board appreciates all your hard work in that regard. I do want to thank, obviously, the board for reviewing those and offering their input. We should be getting the final version in a few months. I believe that when it's finalized, and Village Manager Knight, correct me if I'm wrong, that it will then be online and searchable for our residents and much easier for people to know what our various codes are.
That's correct. Yep.
Awesome.
This will be sent off to the consultants working with us for a final proofing, and then once that is completed, we'll have another review, and then it'll be presented to the village board.
Oh, that's great, and we do appreciate all the efforts. At this time, I would ask Clerk Saladino to read the items on the consent agenda, followed by the items appearing under current business.
Matters on the consent agenda will be considered by a single motion and vote because they already have been considered fully by the board at a previous meeting or have been determined to be of a routine nature. Any member of the Board of Trustees may request that an item be moved from the consent agenda to current business for separate consideration. Item A, a resolution approving and adopting the update of the Cook County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan. Item B, minutes of the Village of LaGrange Board of Trustees meeting Monday, October 14th, 2024. Item C, November 18th, 2024, consolidated voucher. Current business. This agenda item includes consideration of matters being presented to the Board of Trustees for action. Item A, an ordinance adopting a comprehensive plan for the Village of LaGrange. Item B, resolution amending the personnel manual to include a leave donation program. Item C, a resolution ratifying the execution of a memorandum of agreement with International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150, regarding a leave donation program.
Thank you, Clerk Saladino. At this time, I would ask if there are any public comments on matters on tonight's agenda, and that will include the R6 zoning. It will include really anything in the comprehensive plan. It will include the zoning for the historical east side. So if you came out to speak tonight, this is the time.
Good evening, Dr. Bessie Boyd, 234 Sawyer Avenue in LaGrange. So I just want to, clarify from our meeting on last week and the options that were presented. Is that something that we need to speak to now, or is that something that the board has already considered?
Good questions are great questions, Dr. Boyd. I think it's helpful, at least if a few people kind of were to summarize, how you feel or if anything's changed since then, for people that aren't aware. Reverend Henderson of the Second Baptist Church in LaGrange was kind enough to host a community forum last week where members of the community were allowed to speak. I had the opportunity to answer some questions, and it was really organized in part by Dr. Boyd. And what we did was we discussed 4 alternatives, and very briefly, the 4 were to adopt what was currently in the comprehensive plan, which would be to allow 3 and 4 flats in the R6 area. Number 2 would be to, I'm going to get my options screwed up here, but number 2 would be to
We were amending, I think.
To which?
I think number 2 was to leave as is and make some amendments to language.
To leave what's currently in the comprehensive plan, talking about 3 flats and 4 flats, but then rely on zoning to limit where those could be located and how many there could be by putting square footage requirements or frontage requirements. option 3 would be to leave or allow the non-conforming current uses, but prohibit any additional, and again, I would say 3 and 4 unit buildings in the historic east side. We learned that there were no non-conforming 4 units. So that, in that case, for the historic east side, would only be the non-conforming 3 units. And again, those would be allowed, but no new 3 flats would be allowed, or 4 flats. And then the fourth was to not allow any non-conforming uses and to move to end the current buildings. Correct. And it was 1 vote for adopting the current comprehensive plan, 23 votes for the third option, which was saying the buildings that are there now can remain, but no new ones, and 1 vote for none at all, or removing the current ones that are there.
Correct. So I guess I'm standing to say that the consensus from our meeting was definitely to look at option 3, which would be to maintain the current 3 units that we have, even though they were non-conforming. But certainly we have a humanitarian feeling and we don't want to evict or have someone evicted from that process. So I believe that's what we would like the board to consider if it has not been thus far considered, and that would be option 3.
Thank you. And just to clarify, I do believe every trustee has considered it. We just, as a group, can't speak because it would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act. Absolutely. So we'll hear from each other, everybody tonight. Okay. And then the individual trustees can explain where they feel on it.
So I'm standing to make that as part of the record.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Just a couple of other things. When I last spoke, I did mention to the board and publicly of the comment that was made in terms of our property values on the east side. So being perceived and maybe beyond perception lower than other property values within LaGrange, even though a frame home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath on what you called now the historical east side would be the same size, square footage as a frame home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, north or west of LaGrange Road. So what I would like to know, and of course you probably can't give that to me now, is how are we configuring these differences? And then what can the board do to create a better perception that LaGrange is LaGrange, and why would, simply because we are east of the tracks, our property values are considered lower? So that would definitely be, I feel, a concern for all of the homeowners in that area. And that,
thank you.
And so those would just be the 2 options that I would like to speak on tonight and have the board consider.
Thank you.
Okay. One more thing. I do want to thank those of you who did come down on last Monday. I really appreciate it. I know that it took time from your families to come down and to be with us. And so we see your concerns as you are hearing our concerns. So we do thank you for coming in our community meeting on last Monday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kyle Washington, and I live at 43 Washington Avenue. I've asked several times for the police when they come down for some other things. It's violations coming off the bridge, driving at the times that they're not supposed to turn right. It's terrible. They're speeding. Doesn't matter if it's in the morning when the kids gotta go to school or in the evenings from 4 to 6. I think it's terrible. I think we need speed bumps because they come through just tearing. And then down the street is the community center where children are playing and stuff. So I just wanted to address that because it's a need for us.
Thank you, Ms. Washington. And I know that our police chief knows that area is a concern. And again, you were speaking when cars are heading eastbound on Ogden, and there's a restriction on when you can take a right turn, that those cars are violating that sign. And I'm sure that we'll continue to look to enforce that and correct that behavior.
But it used to be, police used to be there trying to catch these people. There's nobody there now. Nobody.
Well, I'm sure the chief is hearing you, and that we'll get people out there.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Hello, my name is Bernadine Sims. I live at 117 Washington, and I'm speaking because the comprehensive plan sounds good, but the reality is some things don't always run smoothly. I want the residents of LaGrange to be mindful that some of the developers will grab your land. I have a residence at 117 Sawyer, and the property line of the 119 and 121 duplex built north of me goes all the way up to my dwelling. On the other side, 127 Sawyer, the property line was 5.7 feet on my property. I wanted residents to be aware that when these developers and builders come down, it's a possibility that they will do what I call an illegal build or a land grab. We need to be aware that LaGrange Village does nothing about this. I had called Kurt and explained to him about the property lines, and Kurt told me that it was his mistake and he apologized. But I have never been compensated. No one has ever been held accountable, and enforcement has not been stepped up. On the addresses do not coincide properly now. It's a 113, a 119, a 121, a 127, and a 117 after 121, and then 127. 133 Sawyer's totally gone. So I just want people to be mindful that some of these things these developers and stuff are approved to do are not being enforced. Rules are not being enforced by the village. Also, we have dumping where the village, I don't know if they approve this, I don't know if it's the railroad or whatever, but they bring leaves and snow and they dump it over on the bridge. The snow melts, goes into people's basements and everything. It's just, I don't see any plans or comprehensive or not that will beautify or give us any improvement. It seems like there's so much disinvestment. So I want the people, the residents, to be mindful and careful of what we support, because if we don't have the support of our village, then we get what we get because no one's being held accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Simpson.
Good evening. My name is Renee Hodges, and I live at the corner of 5 Sawyer and Finley. And I don't want to be redundant, but I want to tag along, or I want to just give what the young lady just said. It is terrible that I have to listen to, and that I have a business on that corner. And when my clients come in the winter, the snow that has been dumped with the dirt and the leaves and everything else is in the street. I also have to listen to this dumping every time like it's just waste. And there's like now logs piling sky high, and I have to look at that, and it is an eyesore. And I'm wondering if there is another place within wherever in LaGrange that they could dump it instead of right there at the Ogden Avenue Bridge. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hodges. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right. Mr. Pluto, I think maybe coming back.
Yeah, I'm going to come back for round two.
All right.
I live at 718 East Avenue. You know, I reviewed all your plans on the future of our village, and I looked at the zoning map, and there's an awful lot of one color and one space there, and it all says soft density. The thing that disturbs me is maybe a lot of these people want to live in single-family homes and don't want multiple families, density, and be packed in that tight. And now we're forcing this issue on them. I don't think it's right that a group of 6 or 7 people have the right to tell people what their neighborhood is going to be like. They've lived there for, some of them probably longer than I have. I've been in the town for 45 years. And I don't think it's right that we impress your thoughts on how they're going to live, okay? This town is 150 years old almost, and we're not going to change it overnight. And the best thing to do is come up with some kind of constructive plan where we can rebuild that area to a nicer demeanor. I was looking the other day underneath the bridge there, and I thought, God, that'd be a nice place for a playground, you know? And I get what it is. It's a dump. It's a dump for snow and everything that comes from everybody else's houses. I think you guys got to rethink your zoning issues in the East Side neighborhood. I think it should be left just like it is. I don't think it's hurting anybody, and I don't think it's going to make any difference.
I'm back again to Bernadine Sims.
Okay.
I just wanted to say that this, allowing some of these developers to go so close to the property line, I have lost privacy and along with equity, because this man's house is so close. It's a duplex. It's so close I could take a broomstick and touch his house from my house. And I always thought it had to be at least 5 feet in between the two dwellings. And then his fence is so close to my garage that I can't even pull a garbage can through there. So if you know, you want to take the challenge of riding down there and seeing, you know, this is why I consider this an illegal build.
Okay, can you give us your address one more time?
117 Sawyer Avenue in LaGrange.
Okay, thank you.
My name is Carolyn Gothard. Bernadine and I are cousins. But I'd like to echo Dr. Boyd's sentiment about our property values. I mean, if, like she said, if she described a home with so much square footage, same home, same build, couple streets up, it's worth a lot more. That concerns me, and I'm sure the rest of the people in the group, because it does seem very unfair, you know, and we have to be mindful of that as well. And as Ms. Sims here was speaking about how close her property is, my neighbor was building a house at 315 Franklin, brand new house. We came here for a meeting because somebody complained, and the contractor had not measured correctly the easement coming off the street. And they wanted him, somebody here, I don't know if she's here, just told him to start over. He had already put $150,000 in, you know, the building of the home. And it just seems so cavalier. So I feel like we deserve the same, I don't know what it would.
But the village board at that time or staff said he had to rip it out and start over?
Yes.
So you were happy with that result, right?
No. We came here, and we signed a variation for him because it didn't, he's directly across the street from me. It didn't bother us. And the home gives the block a really nice feel. It's a beautiful home, but I mean, it was just really cavalier. Well, you know, just rip out the foundation and start over. No one can do that. This was in the middle of winter. So I'm just saying we need to be treated fairly as everyone else in the village.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Okay.
And also at 117 Sawyer, there's garbage that was on 127 vacant land that had been there. Now, that house has been up for at least 2 years. They took that garbage and put it on my side, and this has sat there another 2 years. The Grange hasn't made nothing to get. All I can say is that I'm not happy with how they treat us or how they enforce or disenforce and disinvest on the east side.
Well, I hope the enforcement will pick up with the adjudications.
I do too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Lena McDuffie. I live on the corner of Hayes and Callender, and I would really just like to piggyback onto what Mrs. Sims and Mrs. Hodges said, especially about the dumping of the leaves and the snow, and now the wood chips. There's an addition now. So it matters. I do my own yard work right on the corner. The trucks go by, I don't know how many times per day during the fall with the leaves. And I can clean my yard, go back out, like I didn't do anything. I know that seems petty, but if you're interested in keeping up your land and your property, it's a big deal. And the land that you guys were proposing, building these flats on, will be directly across the street from my house. So I will be affected by that tremendously in terms of parking and everything else that could go on. So it's a concern. And I think that if any of the board members actually lived right on my corner, you'd be appalled by it all. So please just consider those things. Thanks.
Thank you.
I'm back again too. Kyle Washington, 43 Washington Avenue, LaGrange. Now you talking about these 3 and 4 flats being built on the east side. Are any of them gonna be affordable housing that anybody can will be able to rent them or whatever? Because I know we're gonna
Well, just to clarify.
We're gonna be priced out.
Just to clarify, what was discussed at the meeting was to not allow any additional 3 or 4 unit buildings. So I would expect that we're moving towards that direction. So there won't be any additional buildings.
Is that the consensus? There will not be any?
We haven't heard the consensus yet, but I have a feeling that's going to be the consensus.
Okay, but anyway, is it going to be any where you all going to have any affordable housing?
Well, that's an issue, and it's difficult to find any land for affordable housing or senior housing.
Well, you were going to put the 3 and 4 flats up. I'm talking about those buildings. I'm sorry.
Yeah, those won't be allowed.
Pardon me?
Those won't be allowed if it's adopted as was discussed.
Yeah, but it's not final.
It's not.
So that's why I was asking.
Right, and if you're here to say you'd rather 3 and 4 flats, that's a fine opinion. That's fine.
I don't want them, but I'm just saying, if you do build them, are they going to be affordable for the residents that are there?
Okay, thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Regina McClinton. I live at 208 East Avenue. My question is really on the full comprehensive board plan. My question is regarding density. I have a question regarding what is enough density in this village. As you indicated, we are landlocked. We're 2.52 square miles. That's not very big. There's not very many vacant lands. I know 20 years ago we were looking at infill projects. There's not much to infill now. So the other alternative is to what? Increase the density, go higher, but my question is, a lot of people move to LaGrange because of the character. It has a character that represents family, good schools, a good community to live in. So I can understand people wanting to move here, but you get so many moving in that you change the character of the village. And so I just have a question regarding that, and also that along with that comes a problem of parking. We've already heard that. The more residents you have, the more parking. more infrastructure you need. Flooding in certain areas, we don't want to see that happen. And that could easily happen on the east side, especially with the way the drainage is. The schools and everything else. So all the things and factors that go into urban planning, I want to make sure we're thinking of when we think about our future comprehensive plan. Because I did notice that you were looking at increasing areas, other areas in town that's zone 5 flats. So everything's going up, the density's getting higher. And when you look at our surrounding suburbs around us, Brookfield, Countryside, Western Springs, LaGrange Park, there's something to look at when we're looking at the densities with those cities. So I'd like you to think about that. We do have a higher density.
We do. Thank you, Ms. McClendon.
Hello, my name is Ramon Lacey. I live at 112 Washington. I'll piggyback on a lot of the things that my people have already said about the density. What it comes down to is that I don't believe that we have the infrastructure to build on something that we haven't figured out all the way yet. So building a comprehensive plan on top of something that isn't comprehensive for everyone yet doesn't necessarily make sense. As far as like developing and things of that nature, as far as like the residents of the east side, we would actually like an equitable portion of that. There's people that we know who could develop things as well. There's contracts of things that we could develop as well. As me personally, the R6, I wouldn't want to change. It was the third option. I wouldn't want to take anybody out of their things, but I wouldn't also want to build anything new. And we have to, like I said, continue to worry about the infrastructure that we have now instead of building upon the things that we have, or building upon the things that we aren't necessarily ready to do so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lacey.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. My name is Alice Woodson. I live at 112 Sawyer. And I have a question. At the meeting at Second Baptist Church, you stated that the R6 is where we on the east side is 62%. What is the other 38% thinking of this comprehensive plan? Have you had a chance to speak with any of the other people?
For most of the area, it's pretty dispersed. We haven't heard any complaints, that I at least haven't heard any complaints, I should say, from those areas.
So no feedback from them at all then?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. My other question is, where does the east side begin? What do they consider? I mean,
I'm trying to use the phrase historical east side.
Historical east side.
I'm not one to say where it begins or doesn't. You know, it's, to me, it is all LaGrange. I want it to be all LaGrange.
Yes.
I think it's some people that have lived in generations within a couple of blocks have a definition.
Right.
But it's probably best for them to tell me.
Oh, okay. All right.
I can't tell you this block is or isn't. I don't know if it's agreed to or not.
Okay.
I can tell you the boundaries for R6.
What is the boundaries for the R6 then?
Oh, you're gonna have to give me a second. I probably should have had that handy. Maybe I'm not going to be able to give you that. Charity, would you know the actual street boundaries or not that are the R6 east of Bluff?
Sure. So give me just a second. I'm going to kind of expand my map here so I don't get any of the street names wrong. So east of Bluff, the R6 extends north from Ogden Avenue, south to Cosset, from mostly Hayes to East Avenue. And then there is another pocket of R6 that is further south, like just north, you know where those townhomes are, just north of the Park District Recreation Center? That's also zoned R6. And that's all of the R6 that exists east of the IHB tracks, Bluff Avenue.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I also wanted to be known that the meeting that we had at Second Baptist, that I do also agree with the grandfathering in or grandparenting it in, and just to put it on record. Thank you.
Thank you for coming tonight.
I apologize, but I just want to press the board on giving us, and of course I know you're not able to do that tonight, in terms of the map of LaGrange, because I clearly see on one of your maps in the comprehension plan, it says North LaGrange, and then there's the west end. So what we're asking is what determines, what does the board use, or the village department works, whichever, uses to determine what is considered the east side? And I'll make this.
Yeah, we can see if staff has some definition. I'm not sure if it's contained in the comprehensive plan. I know for years that the board has tried to say, or one, LaGrange, sometimes we do fall into it and say, oh, we're talking about the west end or the Stone Avenue train station end, or when we're talking south of 47th, we're talking on LaGrange Road, we're talking about South LaGrange. It's probably not as precise as we would like. We don't really want to talk areas.
Well, it's already out there, and I guess that's what I'm really asking, because as a realtor, I have heard in my own ears, be careful how far east you go on LaGrange Road. So I'm concerned about
that's what we want to definitely move away from.
We do. So that's why I'm asking if there's a North LaGrange, which is clearly on one of the maps in the comprehensive plan, and there is a South LaGrange or a West LaGrange. Where does does LaGrange Road make that division? Is it LaGrange Road that divides west and east, north and south, 47th Street?
I guess we could look at the comprehensive plan. I think north was north of Ogden.
Right.
So sometimes I looked at the comprehensive plan and they're talking about west, but it went all the way to Gordon Park. I didn't really understand it.
Right.
I just don't think the board, again, because of the number that came out to talk about R6, and they were predominantly from east of Bluff, we started calling it the historical east side and trying to have some deference of saying, no, there is no east side. It's just what historically was called the east side.
Right. And I understand historical. What I'm saying in the board, of course, you're not going to have this answer tonight. If we would, in turn, clarify at some point in time what is truly considered the east side of LaGrange. Does it begin at LaGrange Road, or does it begin at the railroad tracks?
I guess my question would be, where do you want it to begin?
No, I don't think it's, I mean, if you look at it on a map, and if whatever your division is for LaGrange, if the division line is LaGrange Road, then east of LaGrange Road would be east side to East Avenue. That would just be my
I agree. I mean, I don't,
okay.
Right.
But the board could make that decision, correct? I mean, is that?
I'm not sure. That we start calling neighborhoods more clear, the historical east side?
Here's what I'm saying. I think it's all LaGrange.
Correct.
But what I'm saying is, if we're going to make a division of sorts just for even work purposes, and we're calling this side north and this side south and west, then the division line would then be from LaGrange Road to whatever as east side. I understand the historical piece, but so then that means if from the railroad tracks to East Avenue is east, then what is it considered from LaGrange Road to the railroad tracks? I am not asking the board to make a decision. I'm just bringing the concern to the board, which has happened for years. Historical aside, we understand that's what it's been, but what is it truly on the map in terms of East Side? Because I am concerned as a realtor, when I hear these comments, be careful how far you go off of LaGrange Road to the east. That really bothers me, and I think it should bother everyone in this room.
I think it does.
When we think about that. So that's what I'm saying. If we make it clear that from LaGrange Road to whatever is east side. Again, I'm not asking the board to make that part of the comprehensive plan, but somewhere down the line, let us be thoughtful of that language so that we are all considered as one LaGrange.
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christian. I live in 201 Washington corner. And yes, I hear all this talk about the comprehension plan, and I do support the option 3, of course, not making much changes, also making sure we beautify our neighborhood. And as I'm hearing everything, making sure the whole LaGrange area applies to the same, rules, not differentiating, the, let's say, higher end side with the housing developing pricing and our side. So just definitely consideration on that we all be in the same, utilizing our area, our house in the same manner. It doesn't matter if we're in this side, than that side. So just together and it's wonderful, community people coming together to try to just be in the same page, not to be differentiated if we are in this area. So yeah, that's.
Thank you very much.
Hello, I'm Catherine Thiessen. My husband Scott and I own 16 Sawyer, and we started all this mess. I'm so sorry that we seem to have brought all this up. I certainly appreciate all the support we've gained. That you're supporting grandfathering non-conforming units like us. We bought it. We thought it was a 3-unit. We talked to the village. They told us it was okay at that time 11 years ago. So I appreciate the support, and I don't want anybody to think it's like a greedy money grab here. We're trying to keep it affordable for everybody, and we appreciate that you want to keep our tenants in because they've been long-term residents now too. They've been with us 7 years. So just thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Peg Moster with the League of Women Voters of the LaGrange Area Affordability Committee. And having listened to all of the input, I just want everyone, the board and all the residents who've shown up to testify today, to keep in mind that prices have gone up and it has become very unaffordable for people to live in LaGrange, particularly those who want to downsize, who are elderly and cannot manage their homes anymore. Kids who grew up here are now adults, want to come back and raise their kids here. A whole bunch of people who really cannot afford. There are no, what we used to call beginner homes any longer. And one of the things that would address that, and if it's artfully done and carefully planned, increasing density. And I think that was the intent of the duplex, triplex, and quadplex, if that's the right term for that. So we have to, I think, be creative about it, understand the needs of all of our areas of LaGrange, and understand that this is the way we're going to address it. And we're not alone. This is being done across the country. Every headline that addresses housing talks about a need to increase density if affordability is ever going to be addressed. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Peg. All right, I appreciate everybody coming out tonight and sharing your comments and thoughts. I know the board has listened and has put in a lot of time on this matter. and we'll be getting to it shortly under the new business. But first, I would entertain a motion on the consent agenda and a second.
I move for acceptance of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Gale and Trustee Thompson. Any discussion on the consent agenda?
Thank you, President Kukler. I'm sure there will be plenty of discussion on the consent agenda or this agenda. But for me, as previously stated, I do recuse myself from voting on any agenda items related to the village prosecutor.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other comments on the consent agenda, I'd ask Clerk Saladino for a roll call vote, please.
Trustee Peterson.
Aye.
Trustee Augustine.
Aye.
Trustee Thompson.
Aye.
Trustee Gale.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Next up is current business. Under A of current business is an ordinance adopting the comprehensive plan for the village of LaGrange. The LaGrange Forward Plan. We've spoken about this at several meetings. The board has received drafts of changes that have been made as we were going along. It's my hope that we can come to a consensus tonight and have it prepared in a pretty formal plan by next Monday, November 25th, when we're going to have a meeting for the purpose of voting and hopefully approving the ordinance. So, Caitlin, do I need a motion to start the discussion, or how do we go? Okay, so with that, all of us that are here up here tonight, we're able to attend the hearing at Second Baptist. We've received language regarding the four options. We also received language of if we were to accept the third option, how it would read in the comprehensive plan. Which I think is general, but I think the message is loud and clear if that third option is done. So at this time, I would like the trustees to be able to either ask any questions or provide basis for which option they want, and if there's anything else that we need to talk about before next Monday. So, Trustee Gale, looks like he's ready to go.
Well, thanks, Mr. President. For me, it's easy. I think the residents have been very clear. I think option 3 is what I would support, which is the maintaining the character of and the current zoning of the R6 with the grandparenting in of the non-conforming uses. So that's it for me.
Thank you, Trustee Gale. While I'm down on that end, Trustee Peterson, do you have any comments you'd like to make?
I just want to say thank you to the Reverend for hosting the meeting, and it was a real privilege to come to that church and listen to everyone. I appreciated your comments, and I am going to agree with Trustee Gale's comments, and I would be supportive of maintaining the current 3 buildings, and where I don't know if we've come to an agreement on what language we're using for that, grandparent, whatever that is.
I think Shirley's going to educate us on not using grandparent. I don't think she believes that really satisfied the problems.
And that would be effective for all zones R6 throughout the village.
Correct. It would be one. Again, it's the comprehensive plan, and it would address all the R6 areas. Zoning will be, it's not technically zoning, right? It's zoning's going to be a different day. So with that. Down there, any, Trustee Augustine.
Thank you, President Kukler. Yes, I, of course, support the strategy that we've all been discussing tonight, that we discussed last week, and that we began to discuss the week before regarding the zoning changes allowing for the existing non-conforming 3 flats to remain, but no new construction. And I think that's going to be a good solution for the community. Two things have really brought the residents out during the discussion of this comprehensive plan, and it's been this issue that we were just discussing, and then the issue of heights, which I think we'll get to also tonight, of larger plan developments. And it's created a lot of great feedback for us to hear as a board, and I think for staff, and I think it has made both sections much better and has also probably opened up better communication channels for future discussions. I do want to say that in this big comprehensive plan, there's a lot more, and that all of the intentions for the plan have been good ones. The intentions. When you hash some things out, you find out that it doesn't look so good, and we certainly found that out on a couple of these issues. I do want to, once again, though, thank Trustee Glenn Thompson for bringing the issue of the disproportionate effect that changing the zoning would have to, I don't even know what to call it, the neighborhood east of LaGrange Road, that is R6. It was not something that was caught by a community member or by the Plan Commission. It was something that Glenn noticed and was concerned about and talked to Trustee Shawana McGee about, and then the rest of us. And then it became this large discussion that has been very fruitful in hopefully a lot of ways and can lead to some great change and understanding for the entire community. So I'm thank you for that, Trustee Thompson. But the board did not create this giant document. This comprehensive plan came from years of feedback from community that gets put on a list, and then another 1.5 years of feedback from folks who participated in this, I thought, fairly well managed and exciting and clear the opportunities to look at surveys and look at the documents and talk about what people do and do not want to see with their land in LaGrange, do and do not want to see with buildings, do and do not want to see with changes to how things were allowed to do or not do. It was a great event for anyone who got to come, and maybe you didn't see what you wanted in this plan, but maybe you probably saw something about it. It's not perfect. It is a plan. It is, as we've said, aspirational, and I think some good things will come of it. But I'm grateful for the feedback, especially in these 2 areas, because they're very, very important. But again, the board didn't create this. It was the community, and the community did listen and did come out, and we've made some, I think, better changes. And but I felt badly for anyone who felt threatened or deeply disappointed by this board trying to take advantage of something, whether it's heights or going into a community with different zoning that might be not welcome. That certainly wasn't any of the intentions, but it's what happened. And so we've learned our lesson. This giant document probably should have taken more time to be to be looked over, poked at, and I like to think that we'll do a better job in the future. And I'm very, very hopeful that out of this also comes a very serious discussion about a task force for affordable housing that can lead to a commission on affordable housing, and that can lead to discussion on how we bring housing to different neighborhoods and why and where, and how we take care of LaGrange as a whole. So that's just my statement on the matter.
Thank you. Mr. Thompson.
Thank you, President Kukler. And again, I'd like to thank the citizens for first coming out 3 weeks ago, the meeting last week at Second Baptist Church. Dr. Boyd, appreciate you getting that together. Of course, everyone coming tonight and the board's help on this. And to Trustee Augustine's point, you know, some people have asked how come nobody from the other 38% of the R6 come to speak. If you really look at the zoning map, most of the other R6 areas are either already 2 flats, townhomes, actually some 4 flats are in there. So they're really, this was no change to their area. It's what their whole area looks like. These are little strips of sections, whereas your section of town, again, the historical east side, I've always thought was a name that brought pride to that area, but we won't use it, whatever you want to call it. But east of LaGrange Road, that section was the one section that really was more single-family homes, and that's why it stood out to me that I wanted to talk to Shawana, because she's a resident, and you know, y'all have a right to have an opinion of that, and I appreciate everybody having an opinion. And I think we've definitely come to a clear, concise opinion that option 3 is the best way to go. You know, my fear was that we would build 4 flats or townhomes over there, and it wouldn't be affordable housing. It'd be builders coming in and buying up lots and buying up houses and building $1 million condos, and no one would live there anymore, because it would be like, you know, where they come in and grab up all the land and build things they can make lots of profit on. So I want to make sure that we while we strive to develop affordable housing, that we can develop that. Now, the one thing, there's been some questions and comments that the board or somebody, that there was a builder that actually wanted to come in and build there. There is no builder. There is nobody that's even looked at building anything, because this is, like everyone has said, this is a comprehensive plan. It's just a dream. It's no immediate code. There's nothing, but we're not talking to any builders in that area, really very few other areas in the city or village that we're talking about any builder coming in. So this is no pre-planned thing. That, you know, if you want to be a builder and develop something over there, it's your right to do that and whatever you want to do. But we want to get the zoning right for you guys. And again, I really appreciate everybody coming out and working with us on this, making sure we got it right for the village of LaGrange and for all the areas of LaGrange. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Trustee Thompson. Okay, so I want to make sure, again, that everybody who's here tonight on the dais is comfortable then with the comprehensive plan and is ready to, I think we signaled that we're supportive of option 3. And so we're directing staff to finalize the comprehensive plan. Does anybody have any concerns with that?
Are we going to talk about any other parts of the comprehensive plan?
Here's your time to talk about it.
Well,
Here is your time to talk about it under current business A. Once we go to current business B, comprehensive plan will be done. So absolutely talk about it, and this is the time to talk about it.
I guess just to make sure, because I think I saw it in the document, but not in the list of changes. The height thing is back down to as it was, 3 stories by right? Or 4
No,
stories?
the consensus of the board at a prior meeting was that we modified the language to 4 stories. Page 33 of the comprehensive plan, to change the 5 stories to 4-story buildings. So that would be revising what's allowed. The policy in the comprehensive plan would be that we would look at updating the zoning code for those areas that were designated to allow for 4 stories under the regular zoning, and then developers could request higher through a plan development process.
Thank you, Jerry.
Trustee Gale, you have a comment on that?
Yeah, so just on that, I think the language was we would consider allowing 4-story. Because the way it's written right now, if we just change it from 5 to 4, it's just amending the code to allow 4-story buildings, as opposed to consider amending. At least I thought that was the consensus, and we actually got an email from a resident that pointed out in the meeting minutes that's what we said too, and that's my recollection. So I just want that word consider.
Okay. Bouncing back on trying to get a consensus, how do people feel? I mean, again, I was the 3 stories, so I'll throw in considering, but I thought there were some people that wanted 5 stories. So please express where you feel on this. And
yeah, I think, you know, it inherently is a consideration either way. It still will have to go before the zoning, the plan commission, if we are to make any changes to the level. So I'm okay with that language. I was interested though in seeing how difficult it would be, since we're the governing body that can change the rules. Can we remove the lot on Harris and 6th from consideration? I know that we've seen an outpouring of folks from emails and them showing up here to ask that that be removed. It's not on the BNSF corridor. It's not really close to the tracks. And that's the area that we're looking to develop with height. So I'd love to see that.
We're looking to develop what?
Yeah, that's the BNSF corridor is generally along the tracks, north and south of the Burlington, Northern Santa Fe. So that's, I think that it makes sense to not consider that lot off of Harris and 6 as part of that grouping.
Yeah, I don't have the problem with that. Again, I think the parking is mandatory, and would like to see it remain as a parking lot. I have no concern that if it's considered or not on a zoning map, because, again, the village owns the land. I just don't see us selling it and not having whatever we want built there. That to me is the least problem we could possibly have. We own the property. If somebody comes and says, we want to build a parking deck with apartments on top and the board wants that, then the board will do that. I just don't see how we could possibly worry about a developer. You know, if it was privately owned, maybe they could sell it, but that's our parking lot. So again, I'm not sure that it's necessary. I don't really, though, we need to get a consensus. And so are you saying you're against Trustee Gall's amending the language to add the word consider?
I'm not against that. If that's what the board would like, I think it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other.
Okay.
I was suggesting removal of the lot at Harris and 6th.
Okay. If we
it's
remove,
the least we can do for that community. It's similar to the other outpouring of concern over what that could do.
Yes, I understand that there's concern on that parking lot. What I don't understand at all is the fear that the village would sell the lot to a developer and not have built what they want. And so, you know, whatever that would be, the board would be instrumental in the zoning that would be required for that lot. And so changing the zoning for a lot that we own, we can do it, I guess. I'll ask Director Jones, if there's any problem, do we call it something else? What do we zone it as?
I think that the recommendation from Trustee Augustine is simply that the map on page 34 be amended to no longer show the parking lot at 6th and Harris as a potential 4-story development site.
That's correct.
Okay, so we're just changing the picture. That's perfect. Is that going to be a difficult thing?
No, that's a very simple edit.
Okay, then moving on to Trustee Thompson. Any concerns with Trustee Gale's proposed language?
No, I'm fine with it.
Okay, moving on to Trustee Peterson.
Thank you. I want you to repeat the language that you used for me, please, sir.
I got to find it now. It would be amending the code to consider allowing 4-story buildings by right, ...
To consider allowing.
So the strategy currently reads revise height standards to allow 4 stories by right in the R8, C1, and C2 zoning districts where appropriate. I believe the suggested language is consider revising height standards to allow 4 stories by right in the R8, C1, and C2 zoning districts where appropriate.
Agreed.
Okay, is any problem making that change? All right, liking to hear that.
All right.
Before we move on, does anybody have any other concerns with how the comprehensive plan is looking now? Trustee Augustine.
Thank you, President Kukler. One other note regarding comprehensive plan on page 80, West End District, 6 points on that page under transportation and access. And I had made mention of my concern over the lack of adequate parking in that area. We could use more parking in most parts of town, but I was hoping to see some indication that we realize that we have a need for more parking and possibly tuck in a note to point 3 where it says eliminate parking minimums for occupancy of existing commercial building in the West End. Could we add to that section or a new number that says investigate new ways to add parking supply? I mean, we've, in this area of the Central Business District, we've utilized partnerships with businesses and schools, and I was hoping that we could see the same and certainly put an indication in here that it's our intention to start to look into that.
Well, how does that impact, again, the problem I have, where we sometimes address the need for parking, but then when a developer comes and says, I don't think people are going to park, or my stores won't need parking, or my residential units won't be parking, and then we seem to allow that, and we're moving, I think, in this comprehensive plan on the what I consider the western side, which is the area I live in, to, as a board, say we don't need as much parking.
I think they're connected. So I think that we address this, and maybe Charity could define it again, but the parking minimums has to do with the limitations for the type of businesses that are in some of these spaces where it would be required. Unlike in the downtown business district, where if you lease any of the buildings in the central business district, you're not required to provide your own parking. In areas of town, including the West End, certain businesses would be required. So it's going to limit the types of businesses that can go in there when they're sold. So the Charity explained it well, I thought, last time, and if she needs to do it again, be happy to hear it. But I support what they're indicating in trying to do there so that we don't have vacancies. And just along those lines, because there are parking limitations for people who rent, people who have one spot and would like two. The gentleman here earlier tonight who addressed needing parking, we have places all over town. We don't want them parking on the streets. Where can they go? If we're going to build developments that require a certain amount of parking, they're going to have to be 10 stories high for that to be something that a developer is willing to do, and that's probably going to be too much. If we have a supply that's public, like we have here at the Village Hall on the West End, or some clever workaround, we're going to do a lot better for that neighborhood when we try to attract new businesses and developments. If we're just requiring the builder to provide all of their supply, we're probably not going to see a lot of new development.
Yeah,
so I'm just concerned.
And I can tell you, I'm fine with that. I am fine if we do not see the right development having no more development or limited development. There's not a lot in LaGrange that I'm fearing won't be filled someday. Whether it's any side of this town, I believe LaGrange is very, very, very desirable, and have absolutely no fear that we should fill up these lots in the next 2 years or 5 years with whatever developer comes in town. I think it's a gigantic mistake to send any other signal then. If you want to develop in LaGrange, bring your A game, bring your best possible thing, and we'll consider it. So I'm all for creative workarounds. I'm all for anything else that would create parking and reduce the parking problems. I do hesitate that when we say, let's bring in new developments and new buildings and then hope that we'll get a creative workaround. I think that's problematic.
Well, with respect, I'm not saying that it's a problem only to people who might want to come in and develop. We have a problem already without any of that. We have students who cannot find spots and are jockeying dangerously every day of the school year throughout the day to find parking. And then we have frustrated businesses whose customers can't get there and whose employees can't park. And again, the renters and the condo owners. So we already have an issue. I'm asking for those issues to be addressed. And going forward with developers, there could be solutions that are beneficial to that. But we do have a problem, and I'm asking that area be looked at. I know people who live over there, and they're complaining. So
Me too.
Yeah. So I mean.
Yeah, I get it, and there's my neighbors, and I talk to them, and they say, "What are you doing with that building that you approved that doesn't have enough parking for the commercial tenants and doesn't have enough parking for the residents?" And that's harder for me to answer when we approved it. So I think you and I both recognize there's a parking problem. We probably have a little different idea on how it should be addressed and going forward. But again, I'm more than fine having language in our comprehensive plan that addresses we have parking issues and we should work to address them. I'm more than fine having discussions about parking issues and how these projects are going to impact parking before we approve them.
Great, then we're in complete agreement.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. With that, any other language on the comprehensive plan? Okay. Does staff need any direction from the board prior to moving on to item B? I'll take that as a no, and then we can move on. Thank you. So again, asking our legal counsel, do we need anything to move this forward to next week?
No, it can be directions been given just to staff who've indicated that they understand the revisions that need to be made, and it can be placed on the agenda as it is tonight for a motion to approve the comprehensive plan.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to B, and B and C are related, and so I'm going to read more on B and then really jump right in on C. So under B is a resolution, and we'll vote both B and C because legally we have to. B is a resolution amending the personnel manual to include a leave donation program. So I'm going to introduce it and then ask for a motion in a second. Again, this was motivated, at least primarily or beginning, due to an illness by one of our employees in the village. Obviously, we care about all our employees. And so there was the idea to try to create a system that could assist with this individual and other individuals that find themselves in this situation where they need more sick days. So the village's 2024-2027 strategic plan includes strategic priority of high-performing organization, which, in quotes, states, LaGrange has strong and well-supported staff at all levels who continually strive to meet the needs of the residents and businesses through modern and efficient operations and transparent governance, close quotes. During the course of the employee's service to the village, unforeseen circumstances such as a serious illness or family emergencies can arise. In these cases, available leave time may be insufficient due to the associated needs for medical treatment, dependent care, or time needed for recovery. Navigating these needs can add to an already stressful situation and represent a financial impact related to lost wages. A leave donation program provides an avenue in which employees may seek the support of their peers in amassing paid time off to support their needs in extenuating circumstances. These programs also provide an opportunity for employers and employees to support their colleagues through the donation of unused leave. Program benefits beyond the immediate benefit to the employee include strengthening and supporting village staff, fostering a culture of compassion, and demonstrating a commitment to employee welfare. Leave donation programs also help alleviate the financial burden that may arise from a lack of paid leave, enabling employees to focus on recovery or their family matters. Further, a leave donation program can work to improve employee satisfaction and enhance retention efforts by creating a workplace that cultivates employee dedication. Programs such as these can also better position the village in the labor market, particularly in today's competitive market where workplace culture and benefits are increasingly important. Staff has surveyed several peer communities with existing programs to allow for the donation of leave accruals. Based on this research, a program framework was crafted. To qualify to receive donations under the program, an employee must not be in the probationary status and eligible to accrue sick leave, must be experiencing a catastrophic illness or injury that qualifies for protection as a serious health condition under the FMLA, Family Medical Leave Act, and be expected to exhaust all of their available leave time due to qualifying injury or illness. Donated time may not be used until the receiving employee has exhausted all of his or her accrued leave. Qualified employees whose spouse, child, parent experience a catastrophic injury or illness that qualifies for protection as a serious health condition under FMLA are also eligible. Eligible requests will be announced with the requesting employee's name, time requested, and with the employee's consent, the general nature of the circumstance for the request. Donations must be in the full workday increments based on the receiving employee's workday. and donations will be transferred on an hour-to-hour basis, irrespective of donating and receiving employees' rate of pay. Donating employees may donate up to 10 workdays of sick or vacation leave per request for donations. Any unused donations at the end of the qualifying medical event will be forfeited. Receiving employees are limited to 2 times in a 5-year period where they can be the recipient of the donation request. Bargaining unit employees are eligible to participate in the program to the extent the respective union consents to it. Please see Exhibit A for complete program details. We do not expect much of a budget impact on this, and staff does recommend it. So with that, I would open it to the board, first by a motion and a second, and then a discussion.
A motion to approve.
Thank you, Trustee Augustine.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Peterson. And any comments, questions, concerns? With that, I would ask Clerk Saladino for a roll call vote.
Trustee Gale.
Aye.
Trustee Thompson.
Aye. Aye.
Trustee Peterson.
Aye.
Trustee Augustine.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. As I said, as I was reading that towards the end, that bargaining unit employees are eligible to participate in the program to the extent the respective union consents to it. On C is a resolution ratifying the execution of a memorandum of agreement with the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 150, regarding a leave donation program. So again, this is our 150 members, employees that are members of 150. Their union has consented to this. The legal departments of both our village and the union work together to make sure that it's satisfied all the necessary documents. And so with that, I would ask for a motion and a second to approve the resolution for Local 150 employees.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Thompson. Trustee Augustine, any questions, comments, or concerns on this? Seeing none, hearing none, I'd ask Clerk Saladino for a roll call vote.
Trustee Peterson.
Aye.
Trustee Gale.
Aye.
Trustee Augustine.
Aye.
Trustee Thompson.
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. Moving on, I would again open it up, but if you've spoken, there is no reason to speak 2, 3, or 4 times. But I will open it up for public comments regarding matters not on tonight's agenda.
Good evening, Al Foreman, 56 7th Avenue, LaGrange. First, I want to express my appreciation, and I'm sure on behalf of the community, heartfelt gratitude and thanks for all the work that's been done to get us this far. I find myself not saying thank you enough, so I'm trying to echo the thanks. Appreciate it. I do have a question, and I'm the type of person who wants to know how the movie ends before I watch it. So with that in mind, my simple question is, next step, which would be the zoning review process and amendments, et cetera, do we have a clue as to the timeline that endeavor will, unfold?
Let me ask Deputy Jones if
Sure,
she
absolutely.
knows.
So the first step in the process is that the village would prepare a request for proposals to solicit consultants to execute that project, much like we did for the comprehensive plan. Then once the project begins, it's typically around an 18-month process. It would be similar to the comprehensive plan, where we would have public outreach and engagement and opportunities for people to stay, to sign up and get updates throughout the project as it progresses. Ultimately, like with the comprehensive plan, there's public hearings with the Plan Commission, and then they make their recommendation to the village board for final consideration.
Okay. Thank you very much. I think the key word that I picked up there is it's going to be a multi-month, maybe even more than a year process. So
definitely more than a year.
Okay, got it. I'm trying to figure out how to budget my time in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Foreman.
Good evening, Board. My name is Wilson Penn. I'm a resident of 10th Avenue. near Sedgwick Park in LaGrange. I just came tonight to make you all aware of some traffic issues with respect to the recent construction near East Avenue and 47th Street. I know this issue is not news to the police department or the Public Works office, but just wanted to take a moment just to point out to everyone here that with respect to the construction and the traffic plan, IDOT's press release stated that all northbound East Avenue traffic would be closed from 55th to 47th. At the moment, traffic is being permitted up to 49th Street, which is resulting in a high level of through traffic down 10th Avenue and the surrounding neighborhood. For those of you that aren't familiar with the area, the traffic is currently being permitted between a park and 7th Ave Elementary School. I know several neighbors and other residents have communicated concern not only to LaGrange, but to IDOT. And there's just a general safety concern with respect to not only the passenger traffic, but heavy commercial semi-truck traffic going through the area. These are not local drivers. They're often speeding through. And we would just hope that you guys would take into consideration some change to this. I know IDOT and the city is looking into this at the moment. But as far as just the current situation, the traffic closures are not being enacted as stated. I know just looking on my own, Google Maps, Apple Maps are directing traffic through this residential area, and it's causing some headaches. So I know and recognize it's not on the agenda for this evening, but perhaps something that if it can't be changed or corrected in the short term can be considered in the future. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. You probably missed it. We did speak at length and had a lot of speakers. We opened it up because a lot of people had requested time to speak before we lasted the whole meeting. So we actually started with that. We appreciate you coming out. We're aware of it. We're working with IDOT to limit it. We all agree on the village side that making it road closed signs or, really making it clear this is only if you live on this blocks type of, and that's what I guess they mean by local traffic. But we understand it hasn't worked to date like we'd like. We're working with all of our elected leaders. We're working with IDOT for improvements. And it's going to be a long project, so we understand that.
Thank you, and thank you for allowing me to finish in spite of that.
Thanks.
Just wanted to clarify for the comprehensive plan is more broad, right, than has been discussed today. To my understanding, Charity is probably going to do community, see what's there's more additional to what just been discussed, like how to utilize our property, like that I saw some of the presentations were with using like the top of the garage and making something buildable, maybe an art studio, I don't know, like being able to utilize what we currently have. So I just wanted to just clarify that there's more, it's bigger than what was just discussed.
Right, there were things discussed and regarding ADUs or accessible dwelling units and the next thing on any code changes, we'll be making code changes.
Okay, and then that will be clarified to us, correct?
Correct.
Okay, that will be all.
Thanks.
Strike three. I want to bring up old business, and I don't want to dwell on it too long, and Mark knows what it is. It's the North Basin and the correct acreage of North Basin. We have two different engineers that said there's a difference of 13 acres, okay? One's right, one's wrong. I would like it in writing who is correct.
I don't know that you're going to get it in writing. You'll get it from me. I think we went from staff to say that the new one is the one we're using. But if I could go to Director Colby, are we using one more than the other? I don't know that we're using either.
These are engineers.
Yeah.
They're paid to do a job and be correct.
And I'm not going back and paying them to argue about what happened 10 years ago.
I can't do a job that way. If I did a job that way, they'd throw me off of it.
All right.
Okay, these guys have a certificate that tells you that what they're telling you is correct, and someone is wrong. And who is wrong? And I'm not going to stop asking that question till I get the correct answer, okay? I will be up at every meeting, okay?
Fair enough.
Okay?
Fair enough.
Now, the next question is, we spoke a year and a half ago about a water tower that had cracks along the side of it. And I took pictures of it and I presented it to the village board here. Now, the response at the time was that we were going to get it was a year then. They said, Rick Colby said we were going to get a robotic shot of the inside of the tank. Well, I haven't heard hide nor hair, and we're six months past the freshness date. My advice is we have a Baxter and Woodman tank, a steel tank that has a crack running along the side of it. You guys power washed it, the crack is still there. We have some type of malfunction somewhere in that tank. It's a steel tank with a stucco coating on it. And they'll say, well, every one of those tanks has cracks in it. Well, I just happened to drive by some other Baxter and Woodman tanks, and they're in Naperville, and they're pressure washed, and every 5 years they get a isometric coating over them to protect them from letting water in so that it doesn't freeze in the wintertime and cause the stucco to crack. And consequently, these steel tanks begin to rust, and we have a poor maintenance job. We're not maintaining that tank. That tank was put in 1982, and it's never been covered with a coating, never been taken care of. And I find it absurd that when you tell me that you have money in the budget for this year, it should have happened in April or May or June, and we did nothing on this tank. It's the most important part of our infrastructure of this town. All the water comes in here. If we have to relocate that tank because it prematurely fails, what are we gonna do? We're gonna go buy a piece of property in Countryside to put a new tank? This doesn't make sense, guys. You know, we need to get, and my recommendation is we don't have Baxter and Woodman do the test on it, because it could be a conflict of interest, because it could be a tank design malfunction. I say that you have an outside contractor do that. And that's what I got to say.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts. All right. Seeing no other resident comments, any trustee comments? Trustee Gale.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to take the opportunity, I missed it when I spoke earlier, just to thank everybody who came out to offer their comments about the comprehensive plan. It's been a long process, but I really appreciate all the feedback we've gotten from all the residents. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Gale. Seeing no other comments, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Gale, Trustee Peterson. All in favor to adjourn at 9:18, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. We will be back next week.
So there's a